Welcome to Bake to the Future. The wholesale baking industry mixes tradition and innovation to feed the world and the economy, generating some major dough while employing nearly 800,000 people in the U.S. We bring you a fresh take on the latest trends and issues impacting the baking sector through exclusive insights and conversations. Brought to you by the American Bakers Association, who will take you Bake to the Future.
Hi, welcome everyone. I'm Haley Blumenreich.
And I'm Katie Jewell.
And today we have a special episode on coronavirus with Lee Sanders, who's ABA's Senior Vice President of Government Relations and Public Affairs.
And she's here today to talk to us about the work that she and her team have been doing for the baking industry regarding coronavirus when it comes to all of the things that I know I have a hard time understanding how it all works. So I'm glad that she's here on the show. Lee, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Katie. Thanks, Haley. So glad to be with y'all today.
Where are you joining us from today?
I am here at my home in McLean, Virginia.
Are you in a closet? Because that's been the preferred place to be.
I'm actually sitting in my bedroom, looking out the window at the park across the street on this beautiful spring day. So I think I have maybe a little better location for my home studio than some others may have.
That's great. Well, thanks so much for talking with us. And we really want to get your expertise on your perspective. Since you are in such a unique perspective working at ABA, you really have a great view of how government legislation and regulations have been impacting the baking industry during the coronavirus. Well, maybe you could first talk to us about how the baking industry how it was deemed a critical infrastructure and what has been going on with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I would say is just in any situation, any issue, anything that the American Bakers Association does, our members have been terrific. We all work together. There's terrific industry cohesion. We're all coming together. We're rising to the occasion as we always do. And so, with that in mind and thinking of how we're going to address and be responsive during this COVID-19 pandemic, baking and food are a critical infrastructure. And through the Department of Homeland Security, there are actually 16 different critical infrastructures, and food and ag is an important one. And so certainly our workers are essential. We're on the front line. And obviously, we all know if we've gone to the grocery store and gone down the bread aisle, we know that there's a bigger demand than ever for our products. So, from a regulatory and legislative standpoint, we've been working with FDA and USDA and the CDC to talk to them about our facilities, our practices to make sure that we continue as we always do in supplying wholesome products. And we have, the safest food supply in the world. And so the United States has great regulations in place that help us preserve that safe environment to produce food. And so, looking for some flexibility here in being able to shift maybe some of the work that our bakers have been doing in the food service arena, and then shifting that production and those products over to retail to allow there to be more products going to the retail and the grocery shelf is something that's been really important. We're really glad to have that new flexibility.
And so when you say labeling flexibility there, you mean and I mean, I know that a lot of folks who listen to this podcast would understand what that means, but what it really does is it allows a baker who would normally supply, let's say, breadsticks to restaurants or buns to a fast food restaurant to relabel their products to then sell them at a grocery store?
Yes, so there's different requirements for food service than for products that are sold directly to consumers. So to make sure that we have all the basic ingredient, basic information about that product on the label that would be helpful at the grocery for the consumer to make determinations. For example, if they have a food allergy, all that information will be on these products that are being sold at the grocery store.
And does it happen? I mean, I mentioned this to Rob in his podcast too. You know, you just kind of rattled off a bunch of letters, you know, HHS and CDC and FDA. It sounds like, is this one of the bigger challenges, is kind of working across all of these agencies trying to get to a singular kind of goal?
Yeah, well, it takes a lot of coordination, and certainly we're not doing it by ourselves. So ABA has been working in conjunction with other members of the food sector, in particular the Food and Beverage Issue Alliance that we chair with the American Frozen Food Institute. That's been a terrific resource and a way for us to coordinate with other sectors of the food industry, and then also have comprehensive discussions with the federal agencies that we need to get some flexibility from. So whether it be FDA, and we're talking about ingredients, or how we, work together to screen our employees, how we, what the procedures are if a staff person or a worker test positive for COVID-19, how do we proceed through that? How do we effectively and safely manage that? All of those kinds of documents and decisions, we've been working hand in hand with the federal agencies. We've had a great partnership to get through this crisis.
So that's really interesting. I'm actually curious because it sounds like you have a lot of meetings and calls and working with other agencies or other associations and agencies. What would you say, what does a day in the life of yours look like? Because it sounds just like it's really fascinating. So could you just walk us through like what you just do on a normal day during this crisis?
A normal day, I don't know if every day is different, just like it usually is when I'm in our office in Washington, D.C., but I would say there are a lot of phone calls and lots of different groups that are meeting on different aspects and elements of this crisis. And so I'm on the phone with FDA quite often. Sometimes I'm talking with CDC or USDA. I'm meeting in small working groups with different industry professionals, food industry professionals from different sectors, as we strategize on the best approach to these different elements that we need to work through. So a lot of phone time, a lot of time in strategizing and thinking through what is the best way, the best strategy, the most effective and efficient way to address these issues, these brand new issues that we've never had to deal with before.
And what would you say are the top things that you have been tracking and working on that you think our members in the baking industry should have on their radar?
Well, the best thing is that, very quickly the ABA team established our resource page. So I would say, if you've gone to that once, you probably want to go back to it again, because things are changing almost on a daily basis. We are learning more about the COVID-19 disease, what is effective ways to arm your staff and your management to make sure that they're doing everything that they can to keep their workers safe. Thinking through all the different documents. Certainly there's a document that comes to mind is the one that focuses on how to screen your employee for if they have COVID-19 and what's the most effective and efficient way to do that. We also have a document, really important document. How do you proceed if you do have a positive test in your facility? That's a really important one too. I know that we're also working on a document on how to effectively use PPE and face covers and gloves. And so knowing not only to use those in conjunction with good GMPs and hygiene, but using that as yet another element of a way to protect yourself and protect your employees. Lastly, I would say there was some flexibility given through the Department of Transportation's FMCSA. And so that information, those flexibilities there have been helpful with our drivers for direct store delivery. And so throughout the month of March, there has been some developments there. So the FMCSA is the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. And back in the middle of March, they issued a national emergency declaration to provide hours of service regulatory relief to commercial vehicle drivers in transporting to emergency relief areas in response to the outbreak. The hours of service regulation do not apply while the driver is engaged with providing direct assistance under the emergency relief exemption. Then on March 24th, FMCSA issued a waiver from certain regulations applicable to interstate and intrastate commerce for commercial driver's licenses, CDLs, and commercial learner's permits, CLP holders, and to other interstate drivers operating commercial motor vehicles. We've gotten a lot of questions about how to handle your drivers if they're going into a quarantine area. This was particularly impactful in the New York City area. So, the CDC issued self-quarantining guidance for the greater New York City residents leaving this area. So it was out of an abundance of caution to protect U.S. areas with lower levels of COVID-19 spread. So in line with our recommendations for other essential critical infrastructure workers, this guidance does not apply to critical transportation and delivery workers who are desperately needed in the New York area. So, there's special information and guidance for those drivers to stay in their vehicles when they're dropping off supplies and then leaving that area. So those are some of the really important things to keep products moving, to make sure there's no supply chain disruptions, following these different recommendations and guidance documents that ABA has assembled and put in one easy to find, easy to review location. And then, of course, reaching out to the ABA staff. We're here around the clock during this crisis, whatever you need. And we'll be glad to answer questions. If we don't know the answer, we'll get the answer for you. And as I said, these are evolving issues. And so there's new information to share every day.
It's just, Lee, like all the things that you just said are mind-boggling to me, because I know on a regular day, and these are not regular days, I know that your inbox sees about 600 emails a day. So I can't even imagine how much communication you are taking in, processing, acting on, I am pretty curious about how many emails you're receiving a day now, but it also seems really interesting to me, really from the outset of all of this, how the food industry really did rally, and these nearly 60 food groups coming together and putting this guidance together. And it seems like the work that you are doing with the FBIA and our members is the FDAs of the world, the USDAs of the world, HHS, all of that, or DHS, they're really relying on the work that we're doing.
They really are, Katie. They really are. And, the great thing is it really has been a partnership throughout this. So I think we really were lucky and we had the foresight in developing this Food and Beverage Issue Alliance. Probably it was about 5 years ago. Having that platform in place for communications, and that group meets typically quarterly with senior officials at FDA to talk about hot topics. But because we already had established that infrastructure, so to speak, because we had that good relationship and that open line of communications, the fact that they know that we're a trusted resource and that we would be helpful in getting whatever we needed to do to help them do their job, that really helped us propel, helped us be quicker to respond, quicker to help, and quicker to be effective for all of our businesses.
What have been kind of the stickiest things to figure out, either with that group or with our members, that, we want to help all of our members with all their different issues? Has there been any issue that it's like just really, really hard to try and get down to the bottom of?
Well, I think all those issues are still evolving. And so, every day, what I hear from bakers is that every day the issues and the challenges are different. So just being able to be nimble, to be able to move quickly and pivot from one issue to another is really important. I think that, we've moved through so much. It's amazing how much we've done in a very short amount of time. Thinking through kind of the emerging issues right now, we're working through trying to get some type of ingredient labeling flexibility, not knowing from day to day what the hurdles will be. Will there be a sourcing issue? Will it be a logistical issue? You have the source of the ingredient that you need, but you're having trouble getting it to your plant. I think that's the next hurdle for us. And then I think there's going to be some great lessons learned when we come out of this, not to think about that there'll be another crisis like this, but think what we're going to have learned when we think about an emergency and how our industry needs to be prepared, how our industry can be effective, and how we can keep bread on the shelf for customers all over this country. It's just amazing what we've been able to do and what we'll continue to do for the American public.
That's awesome. I think that's a great way to conclude our conversation today. Thank you so much, Lee, for joining us. I certainly learned a lot about your work and what ABA has been doing, so thank you.
Bake to the Future is brought to you by the American Bakers Association in partnership with Human Factor. To hear upcoming and past episodes, go to baketothefuture.org. Bake to the Future is produced by Haley Blumenreich. Audio engineer is Blake Althen. And A Slice of the Action is written by the American Bakers Association's Government Relations team.